Hello everybody. Today my screencast will demonstrate how to implement virtual switches within a VMware environment. I will cover the default configuration of a virtual switch when an ESXi host is created, how to create a standard virtual switch, and finally how to connect a virtual machine to the newly created virtual switch to gain connectivity. So what do you need to know? A standard virtual switch is a core component of a virtual network as it provides network connectivity for virtual switches that operate within an ESXi host. A standard virtual switch operates as a layer 2 device which can be used to connect virtual machines to external networks, IP storage, or other purposes such as migration networks for vMotion capabilities. A standard switch can have 4088 virtual ports per switch and 4096 virtual ports per host. Imagine the cost to implement that many switch ports in a physical network. When a standard switch is created, it contains 120 ports by default. All virtual switches support VLANs, but this will not be covered within this screencast. To follow along with this screencast, you will require an ESXi host via a vSphere client. The ESXi host will need internet connectivity. The other item you require is a deployed virtual machine. So let's get started. First off, we will look at the current network configuration within the ESXi host. Okay, so within our vSphere client we want to go to the inventory page and then host and clusters and select the ESXi host that you want to configure. We then have a look at the configuration tab and then networking, and you've got two options, which is the standard switch and the distributed switch. I will only be covering the standard switch in this screencast. As you can see, there is one standard switch existing, which is named vSwitch0, and it has our ESXi host connected and our virtual machine, and is connected to the physical NIC. If we have a look at the properties, there was 120 ports created, which is the default setting when a virtual switch is created, and we have a port group for our VM network and one for our management network. Okay, next we'll have a look at how to create a virtual switch. To create a standard switch, we need to be on the configuration tab of our ESXi host, and then under networking you want to select the add networking option. In this case we're going to be setting it as a virtual machine connection, and we want to create a new vSphere standard switch. We just go next. We need to give the vSwitch a network label, and this must be unique, so we'll call this one prod VMs. And you can select your VLAN option if you want one. In this case we're just going to leave that as none. And if we go next, this just gives us a summary that we're going to be creating a virtual switch. It's called prod VMs and it's got no adapters attached. So if we go finish, and you will then see that we have created a virtual switch named vSwitch1. Finally, let's have a look at how to connect a virtual machine to a virtual switch. Okay, so now that we've created our virtual switch, you can see that it actually isn't connected to a physical adapter, which means it's not going to have any connectivity to the outside world. So what we're going to do is go to properties, and we're going to add another port group to the existing vSwitch0. This is just because of the limitations that I have within my current network configuration. So if we call this port group prod VM1, and we're going to keep it with VLAN 0 and go next, and as you can see that port group is now going to be connected to the physical NIC 0, and if we go finish there. So as you can see, we now have that port group on the existing vSwitch. So if we go close, so now what we want to do is go into the virtual machine settings, and we're just going to change that NIC to make sure it's looking at the correct vSwitch. So we want to go to prod VM1 and go OK. As you can see, that has completed that network reconfiguration. So if we now go into our screencast virtual machine, and if we hit refresh on our web browser page, and you can see that we now have internet connectivity. So that is how to configure a virtual switch and how to add a port group to an existing virtual switch to allow for internet connectivity. Thank you.